with reporters and delegations, Edith wrote to her sister. The commotion befuddled the children. When a newsman asked Archie, "Where is the colonel?" the boy replied, "I don't know where the colonel is, but father is taking a bath." T.R. penned articles about the war and signed a contract with Charles Scribner's Sons to write a book on the Rough Riders, easing the family's financial burden. Well, that's a relief. The publisher sent stenographers to Sagamore Hill so Roosevelt could dictate the story. As they worked in the gunroom, the children came in at will and interrupted without fear of a scolding. Every day, promptly at 4 p.m., the colonel stopped whatever he was doing to play bear or another game with his children. Roosevelt learned of his nomination for governor when newsmen came to Sagamore at 8:30 one evening. Sagamore Hill at 8:30 one evening. A delegation of GOP bigwigs followed on October 3, 1898, to make it official. They were greeted on the veranda by the candidate, who waved his hand over his head, helped them from their carriages, and vigorously shook hands. Edith served lunch for 30, giving up some of her prized isolation, but warming to the idea of being a public figure in her own right. The Roosevelt children learned all of the campaign songs and sang them as they marched through the woods or across the fields. After an exhaustive series of appearances, including 102 speeches in the last week before the election, T.R. returned to Sagamore Hill to rest for 24 hours before the voting on November 8th. Theodore and Alice were in the library reading with Edith, doing fancy needlework just after 8 p.m., when two reporters came to announce that the 40-year-old politician had been elected. The subsequent commotion roused Ted III and Kermit, who slept over the kitchen. When a reporter returned to the house at 1 a.m. with an official message from the state Republican chairman confirming the results, T.R. was asleep. After the newspapermen rang the bell vigorously, the governor-elect appeared in a red dressing gown holding a kerosene lamp. "You're elected by 18,000, the reporter exclaimed. "Am I? That's bully." T.R. responded before allowing the messenger inside briefly to warm up before going back to bed. 2 years later, after riling the state party hierarchy, Roosevelt was nominated to run for vice president with McKinley. Less than a week later, on July 12th, T.R. was notified officially at the ceremony at Sagamore Hill. Dressed in formal wear, the candidate greeted the GOP notables by the porte cochere, the handshake for each. The nomination brought even more newsmen and other visitors to the house. When two men with cameras came out of the woods near the water and photographed his children swimming, T.R. lost his temper and threatened legal action. Despite the hubbub, the house felt more empty and quiet when Edith took Ted III to Groton School in September for his first year. The Republican ticket was victorious on November 6th. T.R., clad in a nightgown, learned the news from a reporter at 5 a.m. He alerted the family, got dressed, and came out to address the newsmen. "I am delighted," he managed to say before stiff wind blew a reporter's hat off, and the vice president-elect ran to retrieve it. Since the family's money troubles were not over, Theodore and Edith tried to spend the winter at Sagamore as an economy measure. Only from May 1900 to September 1901 did the Roosevelts remain in Cove Neck for a full year. Although built as a year-round home, during these years Sagamore Hill was primarily a summer residence, not only because it was difficult to heat, but also because T.R.'s work often required him to be in Washington, Albany, or New York City for much of the time. The family typically moved out to Cove Neck in May or June, and remained until October, although sometimes they stayed as late as December. Having grown up in a wealthy family and not being good at managing money, Roosevelt was grateful to turn over the family finances to Edith. She was a shrewd penny pincher who gave him daily pocket money of $20, which he could rarely account for by dinner. T.R. had inherited about $65,000 from his father, but had serious losses from his cattle ranching ventures. His salary as civil service commissioner in Washington was $3,500 a year, low even by the standards of the 1890s. When he became president of the New York City Police Board and had to live in the city for the winter, finances became even tighter. Serving as vice president did not resolve the problem. T.R. wrote to Bammy that if he had to sell Sagamore Hill, his children would reproach him for not making more money with a different career path. Even though Edith worked tirelessly to rein in the family's expenses, initially she still employed a cook, waitress, chambermaid, and nurse to take care of Alice. That was Mary Ledwith, called Mammy, an Irish immigrant employee of the Carroll family who had cared for Edith since infancy. There was also a residence farmer, Noah Seaman, and a boy helper. By 1890, a second maid and a laundress had been added. Mammy was reliable, and the family was generally fond of her. But she could try Edith Roosevelt's patience, especially in her later years, until she left the family's employ in 1908. Mammy is as cross as two sticks, Edith wrote to her sister in 1893. Mammy's job was to oversee the children once they were no longer infants. The babies were under the care of a lying-in nurse initially, and then a resident nursemaid before Mammy took over. Edith wrote out responsibilities and schedules for the staff on notepaper, now in the Harvard University Library. Her meal schedule for the cook was as follows: kitchen breakfast, 7:30 a.m., dining room breakfast, 8:30 a.m., kitchen lunch, 12:30 p.m., dining room lunch, 1:30 p.m., kitchen tea, 5 p.m., dining room dinner, 7:30 p.m. Additionally, the cook was expected to dust the stairs, kitchen hall, and scullery every day. On Tuesdays, clean the hall, stairs, and sitting room, and on Thursdays, clean the kitchen and scullery. The earliest maid, who was named in Edith's account books in the Harvard archives as Alice Fraser in 1892 and 1893. Besides her regular cleaning chores, her duties were to care for infant Ethel while Mammy had breakfast and supper, and answer the door while the waitress dressed and helped with company. The family employed a governess for Alice in New York in 1895 and 1896, but she did not live with the family. The first live-in governess was a Miss Young, hired in November 1898 to supervise headstrong Alice, then 14, who threatened to humiliate the family if her parents sent her to boarding school. Whoa! Based on the low turnover rate, the Roosevelts did not seem to have a problem finding and keeping good servants, unlike many other prominent families who complained about the issue. Is it not lucky that the servants are so good? Edith wrote to her sister in 1901. But the high retention rate probably was even more of a testament to her intelligence and management skills. Edith's detailed account books show in her neat script that she was paying for food, staff, and other expenses, and also income from the modest farm operation. In June 1894, for example, she paid three grocers a total of $29.22, $39.50 for oats, $5.03 for fish, $39.42 to the butcher, $6.25 to a carpenter, $36.88 for a blacksmith, and $1.50 for a subscription to the Long Islander newspaper, among other expenses. So $29.68. So that's $157.80. She often paid her bills within a few days of receiving them, but sometimes waited several weeks. Besides routine expenses, there were occasional bills for upgrades. In December 1890, Edith wrote to her sister, "I'm having double windows put all over the north side of the house today to the tune of $160, but I hope to save something in coal besides keeping absolutely warm." In a letter to Bammy, she lamented the expense of the storm windows. "But we should have frozen without them." She had moved temporarily to the old nursery because her own room facing north and west was so cold that I could not have laid in bed there. Theo wrote to Mammy on the day after Christmas in 1896 that the roaring wood fires kept at least the living rooms warm. Conversely, the house was always hot in the summer, even before the Theodore Roosevelt Association removed the central ventilation shaft in 1953. An 1893 expenditure of $800 was paid to refinish the house, which promptly included installing a fireplace in the children's bedroom in the northeast corner of the second floor and wallpapering rooms on that floor. In April 1901, Edith turned her old parlor into a modern drawing room, redecorated the former schoolroom on the top floor to become a guest room for her sister, and renovated the old nursery on the southwest corner of the second floor into a dressing room for TR. Edith Roosevelt's account books also provide a window into agricultural operations. Sagamore Hill was a working farm with horses, cows, hogs, chickens, wheat and rye fields, an apple orchard, and a 3-acre vegetable and fruit garden northeast of the house. Hogs were cleaned and butchered in a shed in the fall, and then hung in the smokehouse. Between 20 and 40 acres of property were cultivated from year to year. The cultivated fields were southeast and to the far north of the house. Hay and clover pastures were to the east along with the orchard. The fields and pastures were separated by rustic wooden rail fences. A large meadow lay to the west and southwest of the house. To the north were tree-studded lawns. Oh, excuse me. I'll be right back.